What's up, guys? This is Rey-Jay back with another video. And in this one, I want to break down what's happening with SPY, Tesla, and the broader markets. I want to break down why next week is going to be very important as we have lots of data coming out. Why President Trump just said that's very important and what you should be watching for in the charts moving forward. Just know that I am not a financial planner, so take nothing I'm saying as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please check out my Moomoo link that's down below or sign up with my QR code that's right over here. Moomoo is an amazing global brokerage that consists of many exclusive offers. If you sign up and deposit $100, you're guaranteed 5 free stocks. If you deposit $2,000, you're guaranteed 25 in total. If you deposit $5,000, you're guaranteed 60 free stocks. The offer ends at the end of July in just 13 days from now. You'll also qualify for free data to look at what's happening with order flow and the overall options chains for your favorite stocks and ETFs. So check out my link down below or sign up with my QR code that's right over here. Anyways, now let's get on with the video. So as far as the market's going, when we're looking at SPY, you could tell that we're on an uptrend so far. SPY has broken structure at this 627 area, and we got a nice bounce so far. Now, SPY did push all the way up to about 630. We were correct that it was going to be pushing higher, but instead of holding above that, we ended up slowing down a bit as the day went on after some things the Fed have announced. But despite that, we're going to be watching to see if we can get another bounce depending on all this data, because we're not necessarily bearish yet. We need to start losing structure here. We need to start breaking the support over here for us to start dumping. There's no sign of us breaking down like this yet. We could still dip between 625 to 627 and still try to bounce. Or if we just hold 627, we could just bounce from here. There's no sign of us basically stopping just yet. So the market is still technically on a very, very big uptrend. We also were only down 0.07%. We're basically flat for the day for the most part. And keep in mind, we closed above the previous all-time high, right? Before, the all-time high was around here, around that 627 zone. We're basically still there, so we're still doing a great job at holding up. So overall, the market is still solid, but the question is what's going to be affecting it. First and foremost, next week is going to start off with Monday, July 21st. We have the 3 and 6 month bill auctions coming out. Then on Tuesday, we have the big guy Jerome Powell giving a speech alongside some manufacturing numbers coming out from the Richmond Fed. So expect some volatility on Tuesday thanks to Powell and some manufacturing numbers. On Wednesday, we have just very minor home sales data, nothing too serious. Thursday is more serious, though, since we have the S&P Global Composite Manufacturing and Services PMI reports. And then we do have some bill auctions after that, so there's more data on Thursday. Friday is going to be very quiet. There's not really much coming out, so keep all of this in mind. So Tuesday and Thursday will be very, very important. And then keep in mind that for Monday, we have Verizon announcing earnings alongside a couple more tickers. On Tuesday, we have Coca-Cola and then a few more. Coca-Cola and GM are going to be two of the biggest ones. On Wednesday, we basically have Tesla, Alphabet, IBM, and AT&T. Wednesday is going to be very, very big with Tesla and Alphabet, so expect some volatility because of that. Then on Thursday, we have American Airlines in the morning, then Intel after market close. But Wednesday is going to be very big with big tech earnings, so be ready for some high volatility again then. Now, when it comes to President Trump, just a couple of updates. Right now, the European Union is pushing to secure a trade deal with the U.S. ahead of the August 1st deadline that President Trump has set. President Trump has said that he's proposing a 30% tariff on the European goods, but they want to see the tariffs be much lower because they're kind of like scrambling to get a deal as soon as possible. Despite this, President Trump just said that he wants even more. He's saying that he wants to see a 15 to 20% minimum tariff on the European Union, according to sources that came out today. So President Trump says he wants a 15 to 20% tariff on the European Union, even if there is a deal that's going to be signed. That's what he wants to see to help the U.S. gain more in revenue. He also mentioned that the trade deficit makes it justified and that he's not happy with the way the EU has treated the US in the past. So President Trump has been saying that. So the EU want to make a deal and they want lower tariffs, but President Trump says he wants the tariff to be at a minimum of 15 to 20% as long as there's a deal. And as of right now, if there's no deal, then it's going to be 30%. So keep that in mind. That's what we're seeing so far. And then we heard President Trump talking about Vietnam and India again. He's saying that there's been a lot of progress on the deals and there's going to be some big deals to be announced soon. He also mentioned there's going to be a lot of deals coming in the next 1 to 2 weeks. There's going to be a lot of trade deals. He's very optimistic about that. He's also saying that the US and China are very, very friendly. They're good friends, and they are once again going to continue to make these deals. President Trump remains optimistic about all of that. On top of this, President Trump also said that he's planning a 50% duty on copper, which is going to take effect on August 1st. So keep that in mind. There's also a new tariff of 93.5%, an additional 93.5% tariff imposed on Chinese graphite, putting the total at 160%. That's another big piece of news affecting like battery cells and etc. So that's what we're seeing for in terms of tariffs. So the tariff news basically tells us that many countries are trying to scramble for deals before August 1st. And if they can't get them done, then there's going to be higher tariffs coming for the European Union, for Brazil, and many other countries and regions. So keep that in mind. That's what's happening so far. But President Trump remains very optimistic about the deals, so that is some good news. Now, the Fed had a bunch of speakers today. We had Goolsbee come out. He is the Chicago Fed bank president. He said that the new tariff announcements could slow down the time it ends up taking the Fed to cut. The cuts time, I'm sorry, not slow it down, it's going to delay it. Excuse me, that's what I meant to say. We're going to see cuts being delayed because of all these tariff announcements. That's what he said so far. But despite him saying that, Waller has a different perspective. Waller from the Fed is actually saying the opposite. They're saying that, even though there are tariffs coming, they think that it makes more sense that the Fed should cut in July. So he has a different view. He's saying the Fed should cut in July because he thinks that there's going to be a lot of risks for the jobs market if we don't necessarily do it. And he thinks that one cut is what the Fed should start now. He's been making that argument at least for the last couple of days. So right now, what's more likely is there's a 95.3% chance the Fed is going to keep rates the same for the July 30th FOMC meeting. So Waller's, anticipation and his hope of there being a cut right now is looking unlikely, but it may happen maybe like in the months afterwards, right? We have FOMC coming up later on. That's when we could be looking for that to happen. The next FOMC after the July 30th one is going to be in September. So maybe by then the Fed may cut. It does make sense to do that, but that depends on the inflationary numbers. So for now, because we saw a slight increase in CPI, there's a slight increase in core CPI and a bigger increase in all items CPI. The Fed has to be very cautious in case there's a risk of more inflation, or if this is just a very, very temporary move. We'll see about that just to be safe. So keep that in mind. We're going to see how this ends up going. Will this just be a small amount of inflation, or is it going to be more significant? And we'll see how this ends up affecting the Fed's policies. Nonetheless, the market is still at extreme greed, and momentum is still at greed as it's still building up. The put to call option ratio is kind of flat here at extreme greed, and volatility is neutral, so keep all of that in mind. With that being said, what's going to likely happen from this point on? Well, SPY, it's breaking the previous all-time high. It came back down towards it. And we need to see this basically bounce right here and try to push right back up. That's like the more bullish case, right? The bullish case is you bounce between 625 and 627 and just continue to run. That depends on the data coming out and earnings, but there's a good chance that could happen. I do want to note the possibility of like a head and shoulders. I know it's looking like kind of hard to see here. This could be like a left shoulder. This is like a head, and this could be a right shoulder. And the bearish case is going to be that SPY basically fails at 625, and then this just continues to fall where this gap is over here all the way down to like 623 or below. That's the more bearish case, but I'm not seeing compelling evidence that that's going to happen since there's no guarantees yet. So we're still technically on a very, very big uptrend on the 4-hour time frame, making higher highs and higher lows. Could we dip a bit? It's very possible we dip to like 625 to 627. We'll see if we bounce. So keep that in mind. That's what we're seeing so far. On the QQQ, if we end up losing 555, we could turn more bearish, but there's no sign of that. We're still above 560. So I could see us retest 558 to 560, but I want to see us bounce off that. If we get good data, we could continue to go higher for now. But if we lose 555, I could change my mind. For now, we're still technically bullish. No sign of us losing major support. Now, the IWM has a range. As we hit 225, we like to reject, but as we hit 220, we like to bounce. We're going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. So there's going to be a risk of us dipping to 220, and we'll see if we bounce or not. For ES, if we end up losing 6,300, we're looking for a dump. As long as we hold support, we're going to be looking to see if we bounce. We have a range between 6,300 and 6,320. We'll see if we bounce off this or not. So watch and see what happens if we dip here, and then we'll see if buyers defend. So keep that in mind. ES needs to hold this support. If we lose 6,300, there's going to be a risk of us dipping more, so we'll see just to be safe. On NQ, if we lose 23,000, we're looking for a bigger dump. I want to see if we could hold 23,100 and bounce, so give it some time. That's going to be very key for how we end up moving. Bitcoin has a possible head and shoulders, but we need to see it lose structure around 116,000. As of right now, it's consolidating between 116,800 and basically 120,000. So I think we just trade sideways for now until we get further clarification. Tesla is still bullish unless we end up getting a big rejection. This does not look like a rising wedge. This looks more like an upwards channel for now. So for now, we're technically bullish. Is this going to be a flag? We'll see about that. But I just want to say that there's a good chance Tesla consolidates and tries to go a little higher as we approach earnings. It does typically like to run approaching things. The expectations are not very high for earnings, so we'll see how it goes. Hopefully, Tesla tries to exceed expectations. Tesla's known for doing that. And we'll see how it goes. But for now, we're still technically bullish on Tesla, favoring 335 if we break 330. Nvidia is bullish. We're at 172. We need to lose 170 to turn back down. As long as we hold the low 170s, we can still bounce and continue to uptrend, so keep that in mind. Apple's looking bullish unless we lose 209. We're favoring 212 or above. Netflix is kind of dipping right here, showing some weakness. It's down 5% despite having decent earnings. It does like to base around 1187 to about 1200. So I want to see us basically base there and bounce. We're going to see how that ends up going. AMD is dipping as we predicted. Look for 155. If that doesn't hold, we could come all the way down towards like 150, then 147. We'll see if we bounce off those levels. But look at 155, and we'll see if we bounce or not. For Coinbase, we're going to likely retest 403, and we'll see if we bounce or not. Amazon may retest 224, and we'll see if we bounce. There could be some downside at least nonetheless. Meta could be retesting 708 to 712, and we'll see if it rejects here, but I do expect a small bounce. Google's looking bullish, favoring 188 to 190, so we'll see how it goes. Microsoft is once again dipping here towards like 507. We'll see if buyers defend. If not, we could be dipping more. And then the VIX is rejecting here, so the odds do favor downside for the VIX, which could be once again favoring more upside for the markets. The market may push higher, causing the VIX to dip more. Anyways, that is it for this video, guys. I want to thank you all so much for listening. As of right now, the market is looking more bullish, but I will go over the bearish case in my next video to talk about a potential pullback that could be coming. I do think the market could still pull back in August to September, but we don't look like we're ready yet unless we start breaking support. We haven't really lost any critical support, so we're still technically on an uptrend. So with that being said, please enjoy your guys' weekends. I'll be back with another upload tomorrow. Thank you all so much for listening, and peace out.